Hello, good morning to everybody. So we're starting today's webinar, and basically welcome to another one of our DCAF Ljubljana webinars. Today we are going to be talking about common and coordinated operations. Now these are police common and coordinated operations, and if you're interested in finding out what they actually are, why the common and coordinated operations started in the first place in the Western Balkan region and how they take place, what the results are. Just stay with us and we'll address this and more. I truly hope that you'll enjoy. Let's get into today's topic, shall we? Now, the DCAF Border Security Program, and this is what I'll be referring to a lot in this presentation, started actually in 2002, following the 90s in the Western Balkan region. Now, if you still remember your history, you will know that the situation in the 90s was not very nice in the Western Balkans. So the border security program was actually set up in a way to help build cooperation in the whole region to improve the security situation and basically to support the countries in the region in implementation of the European integrated border management and transferring also the European standards to the region. So like I said, it's all about improving the security and management in the Western Balkans. Now, the beneficiary countries of the DCAF border security program are Albania, Bosnia and Herzegovina, Macedonia, Moldova, Montenegro, and Serbia, with Moldova being the last one to join, actually. Speaking about the border management and bringing the standards of the Western Balkan countries closer to those of the EU, as you're probably aware, the member states are need to ensure that the management of their external borders and are in their interest and in the common interest of all member states in compliance with union law. So basically, if it goes for the European Union, it also goes for the beneficiary countries of the DCAF border security program. And coming from that, the European integrated border management is a shared responsibility for all countries. It's not only for the EU, but also runs for the DCAF beneficiary countries. I'm not sure if you know what the European integrated border management is, but basically it means that all of the border-related services, such as customs or border police, should be harmonized, work together, and have clear connection with what the work is doing. And basically, I will also get to this a little later in the presentation. And regular border control is also the exclusive responsibility of all member states. Now, the border security program, since 2012, which is 10 years after it was established, it's undergone a lot of development and a lot of progress. And basically the program transferred the know-how and the European Schengen good practices into the Western Balkan countries in three components. One is the education and training, one is the EU and Schengen integration capacity building, and the third one is operational cooperation, where the countries actually cooperate in operational measures at their borders as well at the EU external borders. Now, since 2012, the countries have focused more on the issue of irregular migration management, and in this area, the DCAF border security program objectives are supported by a regional working group on this legal reform, and its latest deliverable basically has been finalized, a multilateral agreement on joint return of illegal staying persons to extra-regional countries of origin. Now, they still need to be signed, but this will take place in March next year, so it's going to be a super exciting year next year. The program is also monitored, and the strategy is basically formed on the level of regional border police chiefs. Now, and they report to the ministers at the biannual DCAF ministerial conference on border security in the Southeast Europe. So you can see that we have a clear structure of where the priorities come come from and how all decision taking takes place. Now, just some brief information on all three components, and then so you have a clearer picture of why and how the common operations actually work. So we have the EU and Schengen integration. Basically here it includes the police, the border police, and experts from the ministries of interior. One of the tools that we have is the Schengen self-evaluation model, or the SSC as we like to call it. Basically what we did was we developed an online platform which allows countries in their preparation for the Schengen evaluation to do a, let's say, a self-paced or an inquiry on where they stand, what the processes are, and what issues still need to be improved. And it's all about the transfer of good EU practices into and legislative and practical to the level of the beneficiary countries. The aim of the group is just to familiarize everybody with the Schengen key and tools. Now, the SSC, which I mentioned before, is being regularly updated and also regularly visited, which means that in addition to having field trips and doing on-spot let's say in parentheses, Schengen evaluations, which gives an enormous feedback to the countries on where they stand and what still needs to be done. If anything changes on the level of the EU, the SSC will have that. So the experts that are responsible for the Schengen integration and bringing the country closer to that are immediately aware of it. So this is a super tool. Like I said, it's all about preparing the beneficiary countries to undertake the responsibilities arising from the EU and Schengen integration, and that is basically helping the countries get to the EU, because all countries, as the way we see it, are on their way to eventually becoming a EU and Schengen member. Now, the education and training, basically the education training can be seen basically as twofold. So one are the activities that are done at the level of police education training institution, like training common curricula, cooperation with Frontex, and also contribution to their border management masters programs, and also webinars, which you are attending today. And also then we have from the practical cooperation. We also have what we call an SEE network of police education training institutions, which was established in 2012 and focused on the alignment of practices and sharing of experiences among representatives. So cooperation also with Frontex, which I mentioned, and we also did, until this year, unfortunately, the annual Summer Train the Trainers course in Andermatt, which was, I'm pretty sure that if you did not attend it, you have most probably heard of it, because it was truly an amazing deal, bringing trainers in police and military to a remote location and just engaging in modern teaching methods, which is amazing. So one is the one level is a cross-border cooperation capacity. We have the national police education training and also managerial capacities. On that level, we conducted actually the station commanders course and also the regional commanders course. In all seriousness, the efforts of the education and training within the border security programs aims to bring the education and training level to the same harmonized and say the level of those of the EU. So the use of contemporary tools, familiarization with the processes and everything like this. So this is one of the aspects that we also do. Now, the operational cooperation, basically the huge progress started since 2012, and the first common operation based on the Schengen standard, that's when the first operation actually based on the Schengen standards happened in the Western Balkan region. And the countries actually deploy their officers to neighboring countries to execute police powers in their own uniforms, bearing their own weapons. Now, if we take a look back to one of the first slides that I mentioned about the security situation in the 90s, and then the reason why the DCAF border security program was actually set up in 2002, you can see that in 10 years we've gone through this such progress that but not just us, the countries felt comfortable with hosting officers of other countries at their borders executing their police powers. So that is a huge deal. And we actually believe that these operations are what it or represent the best of what it means to have a regional security cooperation in the region. Now, going to the legal basis, so you need to have a legal basis to do something like this. We have jurisdiction and national legislation also about this. So what is the legal basis to actually do this? Now, if we were in the EU, you would have, or the Schengen, we would have the Schengen key, of course. But with the Western Balkan countries, there is no such thing. So here comes the PCC-SEE. Now, the PCC-SEE is actually a police cooperation convention for Southeast Europe. Not to make too much of a story of this, the PCC is a copy-paste of the Schengen, but for the Western Balkan region. And it has the same provisions and allows for the same solutions that are already being used at the Schengen level. So what it does is, through the implementation of the PCC, it helps the countries take steps forward to the eventual EU integration and also the Schengen. Some PCC articles do require separate bilateral agreements. So let's say that country wants to do for example, a hot pursuit. It's not enough to have a PCC-SE signed. You also need a bilateral agreement. But for the operational cooperation, the legal basis for us is the PCC-SE and also the bilateral agreements. Since 2012, like I mentioned, we had been focusing more on illegal migration and also cross-border crime. And I really like the sentence, to protect the Western Balkan borders and beyond, because it reminds me of, I think, the Star Wars that says to infinity and beyond. But basically it is because a security situation today is so serious and is also it's complex. So one region cannot be taken apart from another. So whatever happens in the Western Balkan region is affecting the EU and also vice versa. So by having this common operational measures in the Western Balkan region, we are not only improving the security situation of the region, but we are also making an impact on the EU. So that's where the beyond comes from. The operations are based on the joint risk analysis for the Western Balkans, which is a regional joint risk analysis. I will give more information on this later on in the presentation. And basically in these operations, all DCAF beneficiary states participate, also the EU member states and the EU agencies. So it's not strictly limited to the beneficiary countries, but it goes way wider. So the why. I've mentioned this already, but the common operational measures are the highest form of regional cooperation, and it is a direct result of enhanced trust among professionals. But they also impact the general population. It's not only about the cooperation of the services or professionals dealing in law enforcement matters. It is also about the impact it makes to the general population. Again, going back to the 90s, how situations were, you can understand that this is a huge step forward. This is just a picture to give you a quick picture of what we do. So we try to make also this media awareness of what we're doing, so we have an impact. Now, the operational cooperation, so just to give you some background, it started already, the discussion started a long time ago, but at the 9th, 10th, and the 11th Annual Ministerial Conference, which is where the border police chiefs, we said that the ministers confirmed their strategies. So here is where it was mentioned and also approved at the ministerial levels. And the regional heads of cabinets and border police chiefs have been going through these common operational measures since 2012 regularly. And to support this, we have meetings on facilitation of common and coordinated measures in the Western Balkan region, which take place every year ever since the decision to have these common operations came into play. Now, I was reading from the slides and giving you direct titles of what's going on, just so if you happen to catch some of these buzzwords in the future, you will know what they refer to, and you will have a better time or easier time understanding of what's taking place. Now, the facilitation meeting is also one of the aspects which I will address at how the operations take place. Now, the first operation was in 2012 at the Western Balkan borders, and we had police officers just coming to just exchanging and performing their police duties. Now, we have actually two types of operations, and hence also the title of today's presentation, where we have the common and coordinated operations. So what is basically the difference between two? The common operations are the includes the exchange of police officers in uniforms with their personal weapons, where the coordinated operations means that there is no exchange of police officers. So with the common operation, it means that we will bring officers from 5 countries to a certain place in one of the countries, to a certain border area, and they will perform police duties. They will discuss how this will take place, who will be when, what kind of activities they'll do, what the resources are, and everything like this. So they really focus on one region and they perform their duties. While the coordinated operations means that we have several, let's say, border crossing points. And say, okay, from this and this time we will have an intensified activities there to discover what forms of criminality we can stop. Now, since 2012, we've had 20 operations altogether. 11 were common operations and 9 were coordinated operations. Now, the impact of the operation is basically sharing of knowledge and practices, transfer of EU good practices and Schengen standards into the region, building of mutual trust, training. It also has a positive impact on the general population. And then there are the operational results that also come with the operation. So either there's discovery of illegal border crossings, stolen vehicles, smuggling of goods, and so on. It truly is a lean approach assured by DCAF in responding to acute threats, providing invaluable experience. Meaning that if something happens, we can support these operations, and they react to the situation in the region. The common operations can be deployed in need of whenever country needs an additional assistance with something. In case there is there's regular migration, enhanced migration flows, and the countries cannot take care of this. So, or in case of cross-border criminal activity at external borders. Now, the same situation is at the Macedonian-Greek border, where there have been, I think, since 2 years now, over 100 foreign police officers assisting with the border management of the border police there. Common operations can be initiated at the request of a member state, and in the context of a situation requiring urgent actions. Now, it means if a country is in need of a special profile of experts there, or technical equipment, or anything which they do not have, they can request this, and they can get it. This is some images from one of the previous operations. You can see we have media coverage quite well taken care of, and the operational results itself are actually not to be neglected. We've had some amazing results actually. The operations are intelligence driven. They are always organized in consultation with all countries that participate in it. Basically, if a country asks, basically the country that hosts makes the recommendation or proposal for the number of officers that need to come there, and also the technical equipment that it needs. Now, this slide I will get back to later in the presentation, and everything more will be clear. So the basics of the operation are, they are agreed at a preparatory meeting. So nothing is done just at the whims. They are based on common and coordinated operational cycle. There's exchange of information. So we have incident reports and daily reports, and a lot of tracking of activities and analytical work. Training, exchange of equipment, exchange of officers in uniform and with personal weapons. Of course, the operational results to consideration, the press conference, and last but not least, the costs are covered by DCAF. The common and coordinated operations cycle. I mentioned earlier in the presentation that we do a regional risk assessment, risk analysis report. So basically we gather the national data of the countries, we get everybody together, and we analyze those that data. This risk analysis then translates at another meeting, which is the preparatory meeting on the facilitation, into the operational plan. So what activities will take place, where the duration, and everything like this. Then starts the actual implementation of the operation. So the operational plan becomes actual action. After the implementation, we have the evaluation of all activities, when we need to go through the operation, what went well, what didn't, what are the gaps. So can we address those gaps either with technical purchase or additional trainings? Were there any other problems, or does a need show to have certain access to certain databases more sensible? So, and this then gets back translated into considered in the risk analysis. The point of it all is that we have operations which actually deliver results, and those results are good. We have always good results. So if something goes wrong, it's a good result because we know what to fix and later on, meaning that each cycle of the operation gets better and improves. So the risk analysis is based on all national data which is available. That means that all countries taking part in the operation need to have an established data system where they track all border-related incidents, which then can be translated into relevant intelligence. And also the gaps in national intelligence and policing processes are identified in this. We take all this information, we try to figure out the trends. So what the trends are, meaning that in a certain time period of the year is one of the border crossing points more under impact for that specific type of cross-border criminality. And when we do the risk analysis, we always have to we gather data answering these questions. So what happened? When did it happen? Where? Who was the perpetrator? How? So what the modus was, why, and also with what. And this gives us a lot of information that allows us to establish the trends. So using this information and what the countries provide us in answering these questions, we get to predict which area, border area, will be under duress in the future, in what specific time, and what measures can actually be taken to counter that form. Now, if you paid attention, or if you joined us last week where we did the irregular migration, Anton had a wonderful presentation where he said there's this theory of price that affects the irregular migration. Now, the same process can be applied here. So if we make it harder for the criminal groups to do their activities, it affects their whole business. So if the peak of one activities is at one specific time, let's say on 5th of August, every year we know that if we focus on that, we will cause a disturbance in the criminal business. And basically this is why the risk analysis also takes place. I'm generalizing a bit. Hopefully you understand this, but just to get the picture through. Now, all these questions then result into something like this. So this is also simplifying everything that, all the data that we compile and we try to do is identify which border crossing areas are under most effect for a specific type of crime. So if we take a look at this picture, this is a screenshot from Google Earth actually, but based on our intelligence. We have all sorts of crime areas that are taking place. So if we can see that in Serbia near Zaječar, we've had incidents where notable incidents where it came to human smuggling, or we had smuggling of cigarettes or drugs. What needs to be mentioned here is that once we do this, translate this, we do a cross-reference. So we actually check the information. We actually check if the trend has been noticed on two countries. So let's say that we have Serbia and Montenegro, and we see that there's drug smuggling here in the Jabuka region. We actually check, so is this something that has been noticed by both sides? So if we see that there's also this trend going on, we see that, okay, so it may make sense to focus in that sense, in that area also. Still, if one country says, okay, this is a huge problem, we have an enormous I don't know, like shipments of drugs coming in from Montenegro through Jabuka, it means, okay, there's something to be done here. Or then information, if Montenegro says, yeah, but we never noticed this, trend, it goes two ways. So one thing is that I'm using these two countries as an example. I'm not saying that this is a true situation, but I'm using it just as a reference. It means that this is also one of the fields that may need or can be addressed or improved. Yeah, so this is one of the intelligences we make. There's also a lot of graphs behind it where we consider the timeline when these things happen. So this is how we then do our operations. Based on the intelligence, we can also you probably recognize the Balkan route migration wave in 2015 and 16. This is also what we get from this risk analysis. Now, the operational plan basically highlights the aim and objectives of the common and coordinated operation. So if we identify a trend, we say, okay, we will focus on this and this type of criminality then. We also determine the geographical area, so the locations where the operations will take place, how long they should take place, and also how many officers should take place in this operation, and what their skill level should be. If there's a special type of activities that will be done, or even if there isn't, if there is any training that the officers would like to receive, we can also provide that. The rules of engagement for officers taking part are also determined, that their tasks, responsibilities, what they will be wearing, what equipment should they be wearing, bandanas or anything like this, what databases can be accessed, or service weapons if they will use them. The chain of command also needs to be addressed, and like I said also in the previous slide, with the human resources, also the technical equipment needed. So this results into a table something like this. This is direct extract of one of our operations, and basically we said, okay, for this operation we will need this and this many officers, and Moldova kindly said, okay, you know what we will do, we can provide one expert for forged documents and one expert for cigarette smuggling. On the other hand, we had two guys from Slovenia, where one was the expert on stolen vehicles and one for compensatory measures, and they came with the Schengen booth and also the police dog. Specifically for this operation, which I mentioned, the police dog, dog sniffer, the dog played a huge role in discovery of drugs. So this was also the first time we had a dog participate in the common operation, and it proved to be a huge success. During the operations, the police basically they carry out, the border guards carry out their duties according to the operational plan. They're all professionals, so they know their work. They work under the command and control of the hosting country, of course, and they're also accompanied all the time with one of the local hosting officers. They can still wear their national uniforms, and we've had some funny episodes about this. I'll mention those later. But still, the same rules apply. They need to respect all fundamental rights and also all national legislation that exists in the country. So they are not exempt from anything. The operations normally last for 160 hours. So that's a lot of operational time, and the guys and women that are taking part in the operation do a lot of field time. About the on-spot training, I mentioned before that we had Schengen buses there, and what we do is, if we see that there are technical capacities being used for a specific type of operation, and the border guards taking part in the operation do receive familiarization with a presentation of equipment or specialized training on certain types of activities that are related to their type of work. What it means is, during the operation, we bring together a lot of people, and a lot of people means in our line of work, a lot of specialists, experts in specific fields. So what we try to do is to facilitate this exchange of knowledge, so get them talking, make them do demonstrations, how they perform work, what the most or the latest modus operandi in smuggling something is, just to hear it directly from the experts. There's one thing reading about it, and the other one is actually learning it in person for these guys. And the guys that I'm speaking guys in general, but I mean also the women taking part, really know their work. So it's a lot of the on-spot training in the classroom before the operation, also during the operation, because they are paired up and they see how somebody else performs this checks. Like I mentioned, they're always accompanied by local officers, and we've also had on-spot support by Europol. So Europol also joins our operations, and they have immediate access to Siena, and they can do the checks to see in parallel, to see if something pops up, if there's a hit in their database. All activities are carefully documented documented because this not only gives us feedback on what the activities took place, but also helps highlight some of the fields that may need further development, or what runs well, what doesn't, you know the drill. The exchange of information is huge. The increased level of cooperation, and it also has the impact on general population. Like I said, the exchange of information, it's not only about exchange of information on the activities that take place, how somebody does something in the sense of learning something new. It is also about the utilizing of the databases in the information flows that are existing. Because the officers are brought together and they are doing patrols together, they are in contact and communication with hosting officers and also the other officers of other visiting countries. The increased, say, trust and friendship that basically develops is huge, and the impact it also has on the general population. Now, one thing we try to do is through the media coverage, we do articles or press conference, we have newspaper articles and everything like this, so we do outreach like this. But the funny story is that people also get quite surprised when they are driving, and let's say that we had this situation in Serbia the last time. They were stopped by a Serbian police officer, of course, but the document check was done by a officer from Montenegro. The social media is everywhere, and basically if you cannot go down the street and not see people attached to their cell phones. What we had an amazing discovery during one of our last operations was that people started actually exchanging messages on Viber and also on Facebook about what we're doing. So the situation here, this is a direct screenshot from one of the Viber communications that took place. It was a public group and posted by one of the guys, local guys, I guess, where he said, "Okay, I've seen 2 patrols, and if my eyes don't aren't playing a trick on me, there was a patrol car with Montenegro license plate numbers." So not only did the police officers come with their uniform, they also came with their car. So that was quite interesting. And there was this post taken from Facebook. Now again, this was a public post. That's why I didn't do any didn't hide the name of the person that was writing this one. Again, he was traveling to Kladovo and he got stopped, actually checked by the police from Montenegro, and one of his friends didn't actually want to give the documents to the officer, to the Montenegrin officer, as he wasn't sure if this is regular or irregular. But what we could follow then from the afterwards of the communication was that people were actually taking this whole common operations and visiting officers as positive development, and many people were, if you read through the document, through the post, you could see that they were actually all for it. So this was one of our this was actually a great confirmation that what we do actually has a positive impact on the general population. So this was something we were very happy about. Now, the operational results. I do have to mention that the operational results are not the main focus of the operation, but since we started doing these operations, all officers stated that it was part of their professional challenge. Obviously, there's a bit of a healthy competition, like who will have the biggest score, who will discover most drugs, who will discover the biggest number of illegal migrants and everything like this. But tracking all the activities that take place, this is one of the graphs that we have to see that, okay, if I'm just to translate this one, it means that all incidents are tracked, when they happen, what the modus operandi was, and this is again then taken back to the evaluation and considered in the next year's risk analysis. And you can see that from this the data we compiled, that the majority of incidents took place between 12 and 1 in the afternoon, between 2 and 3 in the afternoon, and between 5 and 6 in the afternoon. So these are the 3 peaks, and there's also one at between 9 and 10. So this also gives us information on, okay, so in that specific area, during these hours, the activities increase. So, which is again fine. This is one of the results, where almost a kilo of skunk was confiscated. This is a picture actually from one of the smuggling methods, where the guy that was doing the cigarette smuggling had a double floor in the car, and was smuggling these huge amounts of cigarettes. At one of our operations, we actually discovered precursors, which were to be used for explosives. So for us, this was a real wake-up call, because in the follow-up, we actually established that these was to be connected to terrorism. So we've not considered this actually, that we would be reaching into this field also, but as it became clear in the next operations, also we would be dealing also with the issue of countering terrorism more and more. This was one of our hugest actually confiscations, where we had over 150,000 packs of cigarette discovered that were trying to be smuggled out. So speaking about the operational results, since 2012 and 2017, we did the last operation, we've had discovered 100 illegal migrants, 44 cases of smuggling of illicit drugs, 754 refusals of entry, 6 cases of hidden persons in transport vehicles, 162 cases of forged documents, 29 cases of stolen vehicles, forged chassis numbers, 77 identified wanted persons, and 4 acts related to terrorism, and much more. These are just some to highlight. So it's not the operations. What makes difference between these operations and other kinds of training is that these are officers, professionals engaging in actual police work, and it derives actual operational results. So it's not a training, it's a real doing thing. The outcomes of common and coordinated operations, obviously, is exchange of experiences and good practices. A lot of experts together, they talk, they see each other work, they observe, they ask, and they learn. The exchange of information and increasing the level of cooperation. We have the transferring of EU standards to the region. We are one of the outcomes is also the building of mutual trust and confidence building. It has an impact on the general population. It produces operational results, and basically it is an exchange of police officers with uniform and weapons. What this means is we with these operations, I'm saying we, but I mean not DCAF in Ljubljana, but everybody, all services taking part in this. What we show is that this can be done. This is a solution which is available, a possibility that can be used, a very good form of police cooperation that can be utilized. So it's one thing doing it when we say let's do a common operation and everybody agrees and we do it. One thing is the countries have started to do it themselves. So it's not about us pushing it anymore. It's about taking the ownership of the countries in the region to do this. So this is one of the tools that everybody is becoming more and more familiar with, and more in favor of using. Everything that happens during the operation gets documented. So after the operation, we do evaluation of. After the operation, we evaluate everything that took place. It's done by us, the host, the participating countries, anybody that is involved in the operation in whatever sense possible. We identify what can be still improved. So we try to highlight what went well and what didn't, so that future efforts can be better, of course. And we also inform the public on all activities and results. This is again one of our general public outreach strategies, just that so that everybody is aware of what we do. So on the right side of the screen, you have a snapshot of basically how a report looks like, and in this case it is for Common Operation Dunav 2017, which took place at the road sections from border with Bulgaria towards central Serbia, and it was in Kladovo region in Serbia. So this is a very comprehensive report, and it shares a lot of information which is then very useful for law enforcement authorities to in revision of their work and planning of their activities. So going back then to the common and coordinated operations cycle, we see that this is basically how it works. All the information that countries gather through the year on their border-related incidents gets analyzed and results in a regional risk analysis. This gets transferred then into the operational plan, where the trends are identified, and based on the availability of resources, activities are planned. So we take the information and we translate it into, okay, in that area, in that time period, this and these actions make sense. We also consider, when doing this, we also consider what let's say, what type of activities officers could still use additional training or advancement. So if we bring together several specialists in, let's say, document forgery, we might focus on this, and this will provide also a great learning opportunity for those that are not yet familiar with this in such detail. Then comes the implementation of the operation plan, meaning taking it into practice, doing what everybody does best, and after it comes an evaluation which gets translated back to the countries to be considered in their future risk analysis, and gathering data, and then later on in the risk analysis. And this goes on and on and on.